Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global, our virtual media production. That's what we do here. So if you've got questions about that, let us know. Our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to talk about Midjourney, how our best idea of how it works. I don't know if anybody knows how it works, but our best idea of how it works and what we're using it for and where we think it might be going. So if you've got questions about Midjourney, let us know. And we'll do the best we can to say what we know. Like it's all brand new. But we'll be exploring AI and how it affects a lot of these things in the coming days. So stay tuned for that. And a reminder to our producers: a lot of times we're getting more questions than we can answer. Your votes are important. So go into Mukana, vote things up, vote things down. Let us know what you want us to talk about next. All right, let's jump into the questions. Mitch, what do we have?
Thank you, Alex. First come is Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I do wood turning demos via Zoom. I use a Rode Wireless Go 2 with a cardioid head-worn mic. I want an audio interface that can adjust the balance between background machine noise and voice.
Go ahead, Jason.
I would say if you could afford it, a Mix Pre 6 with noise assist is the best that there is. And if you can go cheaper than that, I would probably get a mic that is more directional to just kind of get all the off-axis rejection that you can.
Yeah, it's interesting. The cardioid head-worn mic should do a pretty good job of getting rid of a lot of that machine noise. I'd be curious to see how it's pointed as well. So is it pointed straight out, or is it coming? You can also look at mics that are going to come around a little bit, so that you can kind of adjust exactly because where that cardioid is pointed is super important. So think about, it'd be interesting to know what kind of mic you're actually using there. I don't know whether you're actually miking the wood turning. If you're doing that, then you need a couple channels. So the question is, are you getting all the audio that you're using out of your head-worn mic, or are you getting it in a mixture of mics? And if that's the case, then you have to figure out how to get that GoPro, take that 1/8-inch jack and get it into a XLR and then get it into a mixer. And then you can kind of mix between it. And, something like a Flow 8 might do really well as well. It's a little less expensive than the Mix Pre. The hard part you'll have with noise assist is that noise assist really likes things to be constant. And when you're doing things that with your lathe and doing other things like that, it's not going to be as constant. So it may not be quite as good at taking some of those things out. And it might even I'd be really curious to see what it does, because it might be irregular as well. It might be coming in and out as you change things. So you just hear something going right, instead of the whole piece, which might be more disconcerting than just hearing it. Next question.
Mike Edwards, Brooklyn, New York, asking, morning, guys. Currently working on a wall mount rack build. Outside of AV units, what essential units should I account for? For example, PDUs, cooling, cable management, etc. Trying to decide between 12 units or 19 units. Thank you.
Go ahead, Grant.
Definitely 19 units. I don't think anyone
Yes.
anyone has ever said, gee, I wish I had less space in my rack. You're always saying, I wish I got a bigger, larger rack. And because initially, if you don't have all the gear to fill it up, then you spread everything out nicely. Makes everything easier to access. And if you really have a lot of room, then some patch panels, like bringing things out so that you can really easily access things either from the front, or I guess if you're mounting on the wall, then bringing things from the back and having them accessible at the front makes things really nice. So patch panels is one thing. Definitely power management, cable management. There's some really cool racks that will hold cables in there nice and neatly, and so then you can think about particularly Cat 5 and things like that, Cat 7 or 8 or whatever we're talking about, bringing them forward and having them come into the switches and stuff just neatens it all up. So more space is better.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
You're going to need a better mount for it, but the higher end of the wall mount rack unit, and by the way, 19. I'm sorry, if it's not a phone booth, it's not a rack. But no, you need the ones that are a hinge, that can bend away from the wall, that you can actually tilt away so that you can get to the back. Those are extremely handy. And another little piece, these are coming in Alex's way soon so I can get to the post office. These are rack studs. This is a 1-unit version. You can actually buy them as a single piece. But what these do, depending upon the rack you get, is they pinch in, and then they allow you to, from the front, be able to tighten and loosen without any tools, and they're good for a 50-pound mount or something, and they're just spectacular.
Good, Mitch.
Somehow I'm thinking 24 because once you've got all that stuff in there, you're not going to have a lot of stuff left over for putting your audio gear in there. I would go with like a Middle Atlantic audio rack, but if you're doing computer work, you need a completely different rack rail system with a captive nut in it to hold the system. There's a different measuring units that they have. But like Jason said, you got to consider access to it. You can't expect to get in from the front all the time. You need a swinging rack that's hinged and will allow you to swing it out from the wall.
Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
Yeah, and to that point, I was thinking of maybe even wanting a little small, like a little refrigerator that goes on wheels that you can also get behind, but then roll around in and out of the way. But I was also thinking with regards to your Quest, a drawer. You always need a little drawer to, if nothing else, a place to put your tweaker screwdriver.
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, one of the things that I have that's handy is the ability to pull a monitor and keyboard out. So it's a little I think it's 1RU, and it pulls out and then it flips up and it's a monitor and a keyboard. So you can control a server, and it's hooked up to 4 different servers in there, so I can KVM through them. The other thing is, of course, a battery backup. And then if you can, a backup of the switch. So if the switch dies, you can hot spare. That's one of the things that we have hooked up. So we can literally just unplug everything and plug everything back in if a switch dies.
Yeah, the thing they're always taking into account is time. How long is it going to take you to build this rack up? And you don't want to, like we just did this. I put it in a smaller rack because it was simple and that's what I had available. We just had to move everything from, for office hours from a smaller rack to a full rack. A couple of things that I just want to highlight that we've already talked about a little bit. Wheels are great. Putting it against the wall cuts half your rack out. Like basically your rack is now attached to the wall, and there's all kinds of things you'd put on the back, the patches, power, all kinds of other management stuff that you're now pushing to the front. So I wouldn't put it on a wall unless I had to. There are reasons to do that, but I would really try to avoid that. I would say 19 is the minimum. My preference for a rack is 42. 42 on wheels is a great size. It's basically a full rack. Think about depth. So look at the equipment that you're going to get. Usually a safe depth is about 30 inches. 30 inches is going to get almost anything you can think of in there within reason. So think about that depth. It'll feel silly if you get a whole bunch of like Teranexes and everything's 6 inches deep and you've got a 30-inch rack. So that's a problem. But really think about that because you're going to run into things that don't get into it. Also think about noise dissipation. So one thing that we do with smaller racks is buy ones that cancel out noise. They can cancel 40, 50 dB of noise. And so when they open it up, it sounds like a jet engine. When you close it, it's nice. And you can also, usually they have intakes and you can push AC into them. So if you need to. So there's a bunch of things that you can do there that make it a little bit better. I would, the last thing I'll say is you can get racks where you can screw either a 1224 or a quarter 20 into it, or you can get server ones that have what Jason was talking about. Either you have metal slugs that go in, or you have the plastic ones that Jason's showing. I would really suggest getting the server grade ones that they're squares and they don't have anything to screw in, because when you strip something going in, which you will, you now don't have that space anymore. So there's nowhere to put. You can't. It's not going to retapping it is quite a thing. So you really want to be able to replace those in there rather than having to do it. And once you get good at it, I'm looking forward to playing with Jason's. I've gotten pretty good with just the regular metal ones of putting them in very, very quickly. But it does take a little bit of practice. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, and just to complete this, I'm sure everyone on the panel knows, but racks only vary by depth. They do not vary. That standard RU, that 19.5 inches, is an industry standard, and it does not change. Doesn't matter what country you're in. None of that matters. It's really just a matter of whether or not it's threaded and how it's accessible. But only the depth is what you need to take into consideration. And I would say be liberal in that concern, because, as Alex said, a rack is actually double-sided, and some of them are quad-sided. Those are even more. We won't get into that.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, don't forget there's other things you need, like a drill to get those rack screws in there, because you could spend a lot of time doing that. But I'd be concerned also the weight and how do you get wiring into and out of it. It could look unsightly, so a roll-around low boy might be the way to go.
If you are going to use a screwdriver to do it, make sure that you very carefully plan the tension of that screwdriver, so you're not stripping anything or making anything too deep. You want to make it pretty light. It doesn't need to be. You're not trying to make it permanent. You're just trying to get it in there. I will agree with Mitch though, is that that doing it with your hand it's a great exercise, and if you do it enough, you can probably build up some great forearms. But you will find that you do a 42 U rack with your hands, which I've done. You won't be able to. You'll have a hard time picking up the fork for most of us who don't do that all the time. So definitely a powered drill, or really I use powered screwdrivers for it. The other little trick, if you have people to help you with racks, is I tend to lay them down. So I tend to lay my racks down and put everything into them, and figure out exactly what I want, and then I punch them all out and then pull them back up again. Not for a 42, but it's something small like a 19. I think that's usually what I would do. It just lets you think about it and get everything just where you want it. Next question.
Cindy Drozda from Erie, Colorado, asking, Zoom OSC has a history of quitting and kicking me out of the meeting. I'm using 411. How can I ensure that it doesn't do that? Upgrade to Pro, sign in with Zoom instead of join WOL login?
Go ahead, or without login, I think, or join without login. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I would not be looking so much at the particular software as I would be the machine. There must be something else that's going on there, and trying to troubleshoot that a little bit. One of those things would be running it on another machine, different configuration, and see how that works. One of the things that we often love to do is to format a computer and start again. It's a healthy thing to do, like every 6 months, and that's the type of thing that I would be looking at, is to reformat that machine, start it all fresh again, install it fresh, and then see if that problem continues. Because I would think that it's something that's interfering. Some other software is conflicting with it.
Yeah, a couple things there. Try Mac if you can. If you have one laying around, just see if it operates any differently than the PC does. Also, one of the things you may want to do is use Sidecar and see what commands are being run when it actually dumps out. So, you want to see what is attached to Zoom OSC, and then also what commands are being sent as the app closes, if you can. So try to figure those things out, and then, or this is the most important thing, is when something's crashing, try to get to a point where you can reproduce it. So I do step one. It's not that it crashes sometimes. You want to find, apps generally are very predictable. We don't know what the steps are, but the key is to find those steps. I did this. I have this PC with this operating system. I did this, boom, it's gone. And you can do it every single time. I can do this every time. If you go through that work and then you send it to like info at liminalet.com, that's going to help them move much faster. If you tell them it's crashing, they don't know where to start. If you tell them I did these 6 steps and it thumps out with this operating system, the chances of them getting it fixed, if it is a bug, which it probably is in some way, shape, or form, is much higher. And getting good at documenting your bugs is useful. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. In the hotel I'm staying at, the hot tub lights cycle through different colors at night. How is that done? And would there be a product that does that? DMX, controllable waterproof fixtures for the residential market.
I go, Jesse.
If you're talking about the mechanics of that, it's a multicolored LEDs. What I've got is a strip of LEDs and a controller here. And you can see that some LEDs are turning on. There's red, green, and blue in here. And as I cycle through the different colors, it just brings up different values for the red, green, and blue LEDs. Absolutely, we got deep into LEDs during the pandemic. My son is a light sleeper, so we had to figure out a way of communicating throughout the house without making any noise. So we installed multicolor LEDs with remote controls.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, Jesse's exactly correct. And by the way, be careful. If it's a hot tub time machine, you may end up into yesterday.
Go ahead, Jason.
My guess is you're way overthinking this. It's not DMX. It's nothing of the sort. It's not even waterproof. It's just a light bulb that fits properly in the enclosure that, is behind that little, threaded and sealed piece in the hot tub. And they make, you can go to Lowe's and get these multicolored light bulbs that will simply cycle, that are just, RGB, sometimes RGBW LEDs that, have their own processor and their own controller. So yeah, I bet it's completely on its own.
And there's a lot of ways for you to do it. I mean, again, DMX is a great protocol, and we're going to talk a lot more about this as we go into 2023. But the other thing is there are so many things out there. For a project I had in October, I bought I don't know, maybe 100 string lights to find different sizes and controls and everything else there. And there's a ton of really cool, as Jason said, lower level protocols than DMX that are relatively inexpensive that can do a lot of these things, and they can attach to your phone. You can send commands out of your computer. There's all kinds of ways of managing it, and we'll talk about a bunch of different ones. I just got new ones for my like this for my Christmas tree. I'm never going back. It's so much fun to sit there, and I didn't find the Christmas tree very interesting until I put lights on it that I could control. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. Next question.
Mike Beardmore, Reading, UK, asking, the Zoom updates to 5.13.0 includes version downgrade prevention. Why is it necessary to prevent rollback?
Don't have a strong answer, but this is oftentimes dealing with corporate situations. So whether if you're trying to do enterprise and everyone's updating, you kind of don't want them to go backwards. The big problem that a lot of us have is that when we do an event, one of the things that we found is that we did an event assuming that features were there for all users, and then some of the users didn't see those features. Like a good example is when we had multi-pinning for spotlights. For a long time, when we first did it, I got really excited. The first week it came out, I was like, okay, let's do events this way. And we started doing it. And then we found out that 3/4 of the folks that were there couldn't, they just saw one picture, and we had no control over it. And it was really not a great thing. So, there's a, on a corporate level, or even on an event level, you kind of want to do something where you kind of force everybody to upgrade and then not let them go backwards. And that way you can kind of keep everybody in pace. So I think that's probably where that inspiration got. I don't think it's a technical thing. I think it's just trying to keep everybody on the same page. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Don't they plan built-in obsolescence so that if you slush back to a previous version, it's no longer supported by the OS or some other features?
It can be, or even just the system. It's really taxing to start supporting 10 or 12 different versions of a product. So by constantly saying, okay, once you get up to here, you can't go back, means that over time they can just simply push the other ones, push the older processes out, which are generally, in my experience of Zoom, not. They very rarely add something that I wish I could go back. Sometimes it's a little premature at times, but in general, I don't feel like I wish I went back to the way it was a year ago or 6 months ago or even 3 months ago. Usually it's moving forward. So, but I think it has to do more with that kind of management process. Next question.
Guy Cochran from Seattle, USA. What lighting instruments are the panel using to color their backgrounds?
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm using a little violet splash back here on the window, and it's a Nanlite 6C.
Go ahead, Javier.
I'm using Hue lights. This one, the warm one, is an Edison light, like Edison bulb, and it's only warm. And the other one is called a Hue Go, that is like this round lamp that it's plugged in, but you can take it out, and it lasts like between 2 hours and 10 hours, depending on the level. So it changes colors, but you can move it around and put it whatever you want, and it's battery powered.
Go, TJ.
I used to use the Hue lights, and when I had to turn them down, they started to flicker with my frame rate. So I switched over to using the Aperture B7C lights, and I have them in a, wrong one, simple fixture here that you can buy at any hardware store.
And Sky?
I have a Nanlite, and it's at grabbing level, but it also has the feature that I'm plugging it into a USB connection in a power strip down here. And it's, when we first bought these for like $80, $90, I was thinking this is going to be almost as a disposable, but these are very robust and very flexible too.
Yeah. And Mitchell?
I have a LEDGO tube. It runs from the back all the way over to here. There's a varipole in the back, so it washes everything behind me with a little bit of blue light, and I can put anything on it. I can also increase the temperature. And for an accent, I have an Elgato light strip right behind my head, that little thing that goes from one side to the other.
Go, Jesse.
So we got into last year, maybe I mentioned this, LED lighting, which is just so much fun. We do a lot of these strips, we buy them and we attach them to shelves and walls to light from the bottom up. And then the star field is just like a $15 star field off of Amazon.
All right, go ahead, Jason.
This little purple splash that you see down here is a 1x1 LED panel that was really cheap. GVM, or Great Video Maker, is about as cheap as you can get for an LED panel that won't flicker. And just control it over Wi-Fi, and it works beautifully.
And mine's a mixed panel 60 from Nanlite. Next question.
Next question is in from me. With the cold weather, having to deal with extreme static, what do you do to avoid sending electrical arcs into your gear?
I go with Tom.
Well, if you've got a little spray bottle and some fabric softener and water, cut it half and half. Just a couple little mists, and the carpet will not generate static anymore.
Mitch?
Yeah, they have pads that you can roll around on that tend to absorb the static in some way. The other side effect is you can see my hair is starting to stand straight up. So we got a lot of static going on. And if you touch equipment like your microphone or your keyboard, you risk restarting your computer. So that can be a problem in a show like this.
Go ahead, Jason.
There's an old-timey spray can that I've been using forever. My grandmother, like way back when, would use them. It's called Static Guard, to a wool slip like that would go under a woman's dress, completely break static. But you can basically spray it anywhere in any vicinity, and it will just completely destroy any static field that builds up.
And I skipped Jesse. Jesse?
Humidifiers.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I got a friend, his name GPT, and he suggested that increase humidity, use a humidifier, wear shoes with non-conductive soles, use a static mat, use a grounding strap, avoid synthetic materials, avoid using lotions or creams, and touch a grounding object. There was 8 of the suggested options, and they had sentences explaining all of them. So he's a good friend of mine.
Go ahead. He's great, just a little crazy. Like, the problem with him is he sounds so normal, and then he'll just give you a flat response, and you'll go, oh, that must be true. And he's crazy. He's crazy. Just got to remember that. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I used to work at a radio station that had this radio automation system back when they used tape reels, and it was behind glass in a back room, and they were very proud of all the gear and electrical stuff. And if you walked down the hallway and you didn't like the song that was playing, you could just shuffle your feet like that, and the static would go through the floor into the automation system and cycle it, sometimes not so well.
All of this is related to, what we would call stray voltage, and it's basically a buildup of electrons wanting to get from one place to another, and they really want to get there. And if you don't let them, they're going to find a way. And I think that there is probably a whole second hour about stray voltage, because it's the thing that that is really a thing for us. It's what we get. It's the static electricity that you're talking about is also why we hear buzz in an audio line, because it's using the audio line to get home. And it's also kills cows, just in case you're wondering. And it's and so there's overtime, not all at one time, but it's not like they disappear in a poof, but they stop eating. so anyway, because they're being shocked on their hooves because of the they lean up against a piece of metal. That metal goes, oh, I can get electrons through their hooves, and they don't know. I don't know if it thinks that, but it does it. So anyway, so there's a lot of stray voltage, and it was interesting. I was talking to for a variety of reasons. I've been studying stray voltage a lot recently, and I was talking to an electrical engineer, and he's like, pretty much everything we've ever made since we started making things with electricity, there's stray voltage, and it's in the air, it's in everything we're touching and everything else. And we have to pay attention to it a lot less than we used to. But, for us, when, having a grounding strap with a mat that was grounded, all these things were things that we did to make sure we didn't build up any stray voltage. Go ahead, John.
So next to all my sensitive computers, I have a big block of aluminum, and that's fed right into the ground plug of my outlet. And so when I walk up to the machine, I always ground myself first, and then I start working. It works great.
I will say that when I work on a machine, I do plug I do have it plugged in and I tap on the chassis, if I'm doing it, and then I unplug it. But there's the last thing that I do is as I have it plugged in, I tap on the chassis and I'll hear a little spark, and then I go, okay, now I can start working. If I'm not grounded in that area. But yeah, you can do a lot of damage really fast. It turns out those little chips are not built for that much voltage very often. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia, asking, what is the ideal mobile setup to participating in office hours while traveling? Hardware, lights, etc.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm traveling now, and I'm using the Insta360 link, and I like that because you can frame yourself up. It's got the ability to zoom in and move left and right. I do have I didn't bring it with me, but I usually want something to raise the computer up so you can get it more at eye level, and then ideally a second monitor. I didn't bring my second monitor either, so that you can talk directly. You can put the second monitor behind, and you could go right into it. I have a monitor behind me right now, but I didn't bring my DVI to HDMI adapter for this 30-inch cinema display that I could have taken advantage of. You can kind of see it there. And then I'm using one small ring light, one portable small ring light that's like $59. And the reason why I asked the background question is because I could have stuck one of those Aperture B7s in that thing because it's way too bright. If I would have had some ND, I could have used that. For audio, I'm using a head-worn mic. This happens to be the DPA 4066 going into a mix pre. That's pretty nice and compact. So that's a computer audio lighting camera. And then just, again, something to rise up the either a stack of books. I've been in a lot of hotels where I've just had to grab whatever I could, take advantage of what you can. For like my hair light, that's actually coming in just off of the existing practical fixture that was there. So I took advantage of that. So try to look around and see what you can use. I turned on like this computer over here that's running Ventura, so you can get a little bit of color. I turned on the Apple TV because this was all black space. So just kind of look around what you have that you may be able to take advantage of in the room and make it look somewhat decent. But yeah, the Insta360 is a great camera for $299. That's probably the number one.
Yeah, I think my kit looks very similar to Guy's. I use 4 of the Nanlite 6Cs, 2 on either side to light myself, and 2 for color in the background. And then I also have the Aperture 7Cs, which I bring with me. And when the fixtures are Edison, I can screw them in and just take over the hotel room lights to make that happen. And so those are, and so that's key. I have it's a Brocoon, Brocoon laptop stand, which I really love because I can fold it and put it in my backpack, and it will lift my laptop all the way up to make that work. And it's really small when it's compact, and it's really opened when it's not. But it's a laptop stand, and it works really well. Either a Countryman H6 or a DPA 4066 are my headset. Same as Guy. I also use a mix pre for the audio to make that work. A laptop and hopefully a good internet connection. Did you have something else, Guy?
Yeah, I forgot the number one, which I had to borrow, which is a 100-foot roll of Ethernet cable. So I borrowed that, and it's strung down the hall, and it's coming all the way in here. So yeah, the USB-C to Ethernet dongle, where I have the 5-in-1 one, and that allows me to get a solid connection, because that was what was hindering me from coming on. Was I was just warbling out with the Wi-Fi. So long Ethernet cable.
One thing that will work a little bit better than Wi-Fi if you're in a hotel is typically your cell phone. So I've done a little bit of both, and if you do a test with your cell phone and it works, the problem is you may burn all your cell phone. It treats that differently, even if you have an unlimited connection. So you may have one meeting and you're done. You get a little email that says you can't do that anymore. So, but that is another thing to consider. And then finally, with those lights, I have little light stands and a couple long ones. About half of my carry-on, if I go down to LA or something like that, is just this kit, that all fits into about a half a carry-on. It's pretty compact. So, and it's worth it. Next question.
From Art Aldrich in New York asking, speaking of racks, need some advice on the best way to handle cables, interconnects between the fly cases, mostly SDI and network cables.
Go ahead, Grant.
Looms. So custom looms is the way to do it. And if you could have you get the boots for the for SDI and have different colors, and have those twist backs as well, so they're really nice, and so that's really nicely color coded. Colors are better than numbers, right? Like it's just really easy to do. And then the other thing I'd just consider is that you might only need to do that on one end. It could be fixed on one of the cases, and then there's a place that you can loom. You coil the loom nicely, and then place that in the rack. And so then when you get on site, you've already got half of it connected, and then you're only connecting the other half rather than having the loom totally separate. But having it in a way and kind of with heat shrink around it, or the more accessible where we can get that flexible hose sort of stuff that you can open and put more in. That's another way of doing it as well, which is really nice. So.
Go, Jason.
The flexible hose stuff is nice. Recently, I've discovered the neoprene it basically feels like a mouse pad or a wetsuit, and it has a zipper. So you can actually you get your cables just right and then put it around, and you can actually just zip it all the way up and down. And that has been an incredible thing just for kind of making custom snakes.
Go, Sky.
Not as permanent, but maybe you don't need something as permanent. The Velcro straps that are also in color and various lengths and very inexpensive, and they can do a nice temporary job of keeping things tidy.
Yeah, and the as best you can, we don't always do this, but most of the time you want a convenience panel on the back of your rack that you're going to plug that into. So you're going to have everything go out to a convenience panel, and then you're going to attach it to that back area, and then you're going to send it over to the other rack. Sometimes we have those rolled up as looms that go straight in. We try to avoid that, or if you do that, make sure that you have a strain relief on that loom. So you want to attach it to the rack somewhere, because what you don't want to do when you're going between racks is allow that stress point to be pulling on the connections into your actual devices. If you put it in a convenience panel, it doesn't. But if you're going to pull it out of one rack and plug it into another, which is very fast, just make sure that you really have something handled so that there's some slack in that loom and it's never going to get pulled off. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, how do Discord bot makers like Me6 make their money? It seems like they're a rather niche market.
Go ahead, Grant.
So Me6 is installed on 19 million Discord servers. And they have a premium.
Can you explain what people use Me6 for?
No, I can't. But to the question, how they would make money is their premium services, premium upgrades that they do, and one of the just a slight tangent on this is really interesting because you're talking about how they make their money. And their upgrade is actually only a small amount, particularly at the moment. It's a 67% off or something to do with this yearly upgrade. And just quickly, I heard a guy from Domino's Pizza talking about how they make serious money, Domino's Pizza. And the thing that stuck in my mind is he said, lots of these their competitors would be charging quite a bit more for their pizzas, and they would be boasting how much profit margin they were making. And this thing that stuck in my mind is he said, you can't go to the bank and bank 20% margin or withdraw 20 or 30% margin. You are banking money, real numbers. And so when you can have millions of people paying just a few bucks a month, that adds up to real money. And so from a margin point of view, it's all about scale. And with these guys, this is an example of, obviously they've got a freemium model where they've got a free kind of entry level, but then you want to do some serious things with it, then you can you actually pay a few bucks here and there, and that adds up to some serious money. So don't be worried about Me6. I think they're doing okay.
And I will say Discord has really perfected that model of you can start for free, and then when it wants to be cool, then it's going to cost money. Go ahead, Jesse.
There's the ominous old adage: if you aren't paying for a product or service, you are the product or service. And it's a sticky phrase, but it might be a little bit overblown. Just remember that a lot of these things that are these free services are part of a larger ecosystem, and that ecosystem includes raising capital at the beginning and integrating that into other profitable models. So it's just a much more complicated ecosystem than one product, one service, one customer.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I will simply reiterate the adage: if you are not paying for a service, you are the product. Period.
Next question.
From Steve Uroff in Madison, Wisconsin. Steve asks, anybody have a trick to get the Shocks OpenCom multifunction button to operate as a push-to-talk button for Zoom on Mac OS?
Go ahead, Jason.
That's going to be extremely hard. I looked at the FAQ very briefly about what the multifunction button does. There are so many different, this uniform thing, or the thing that the public thinks is uniform in Bluetooth, is not. It is the most held together by silly string kind of series of conformities and compliances that it's not going to be easy. I would say your very best bet would be a shortcut if you can find a way to log exactly how it is being detected when the Mac connects to it. But you've got an uphill climb.
Yeah, I don't know of any way to do that. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, would the M1 Ultra Max Studio provide as much benefit for audio workflows as it does for video and photo workflows?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Power equals samples and tracks.
Go ahead, Jason.
I think that the M1 Mini has, at least as far as I'm concerned, been able to do everything audio related that I've been able to throw at it. I'm not saying I'm the authority on this, but it truly can do all of it. When you get up to the Ultra Max Studio, good luck. I mean, Alex can make these hurt, but it takes some doing. And by some doing, I mean, maybe 1 in 100,000 of these units have ever actually been hurt.
Yeah, I think that you can always use more power. So, audio seems small until you start adding 64 tracks of it. You start adding filters onto those tracks, and then you start building submixes. And there's a lot of things that you can do that definitely will chew up that power. But there's, very few computers and in very few instances. I mean, Excel goes about as fast as it's ever going to go. But Pages may, you never know. So anyway, but I think that, they'll all benefit from it. What's the ROI? It depends on how hard you're going to push it. So what kind of music are you doing, or what kind of sound work are you doing? What kind of effects are you doing? Really is going to be, and then also what software you're using, and is it written to the M1? So where you really get, or M2, a lot of developers right now are not fully utilizing what the M processors can do. And so you want to keep on paying attention to the reviews and what they're talking about, and are they really writing straight to the metal, so to speak, to make sure that they're really are they following Apple's guidelines? Because when they don't follow Apple's guidelines, they can do it themselves, and they may have a good reason for that, but it's going to slow the system down. When they write directly to Apple's guidelines, they're going to benefit at every upgrade into the future. And so hopefully we're going to see more developers do that. Next question.
John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, asking, Guy, what's been your experience with the new Bird Dog Play?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I got one early for testing, and it's compared to Sienna. It's running on an Apple TV. For those of you that haven't seen these, it's basically an NDI little box that's the size of an Apple TV, weighs 97 grams, and it's NDI in on your network via Ethernet and out via HDMI. So to add, let's say, NDI to your ATEM, it's a really slick device for $149. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but if you need to toss a computer into an input on an ATEM that's across the room or something like that, it's a real simple way. If you want the full 4K, full NDI, that's not the device for you. You want something that is the $400 range. So there's some drawbacks to it. It does not do full NDI 4K. It'll do NDI HX at 4K 60. So be aware of that if you're trying to use it for that. A lot of people are just using them for monitors. We had a curling client, about 60 of them. So a lot of people are putting cameras in multiple places, being able to select them on the network, so you can change your inputs on the network as to what video you want going to which device. So they're really cool. $149 worth trying.
Go ahead, Grant.
I just had a quick question for Guy, and that is, are you now getting other people to pitch your softballs for you? Is that what's happening?
This is a regular question. Yeah, next question.
Next question in from Paul Terry Wallace in Austin, Texas. What is the most silent of silent keyboards?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, from a continuum of from worst or best to worst, I would start with a touch screen. That's pretty quiet. The Apple keyboard is pretty quiet. And my favorite of all keyboards are the old IBM, and they are the noisiest.
Yeah, it depends on what you want there. Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
Yes. Also seconding on the Apple keyboard as the most silent. And yes, I've had those DAC or those IBM clickety-clickities. And it does feel good because you're actually typing. But yes, the nice quiet one is much better for the Apple.
I haven't found the quietest keyboard. I feel like there's still a level of quietness that I would love to see that I haven't seen yet. So yeah, we'll keep our eyes open for that. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, in this behind-the-scenes video of the virtual Vince Lombardi commercial Digital Domain worked on, they show a node-based compositing system. Can anyone identify that software?
Given it's Digital Domain, I'm going to guess that it's Nuke because they developed it. so they developed Nuke. Nuke is no longer. I think it's still. There's input given from Digital Domain, but I haven't seen the commercial. I didn't have time to jump into this because it's a little later in the show. But I'm going to guess that what you're looking at is Nuke. Next question.
David Brady from New York, taking the Insta360 link on the road worries me. What kind of case is the panel using?
Go ahead, Guy.
Had to grab it real quick. The original box. So
yeah,
there's how it fits in there, just like that. And it's a nice sturdy box. So that's why I'm rolling with it.
Go ahead, Jason.
You can get all sorts of, teeny tiny little cases. This is what I use for my ear monitors, and it's impossible to break and hurt. I would go with a Pelican. What are they? The micro cases. The ones that are absolutely tiny that will seal up, and they are great.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Unfortunately, Courtney's not here, but he has a 3D printed case for it that's custom made for it, and it's cute. It's tiny and small.
So I'm going to apologize to people listening to this because it'll probably be gone the moment I put it in the group. So I don't think there's that many left. There is now a case sold on Amazon that is for the link, and it looks like it's a little smaller than the case. I ordered one. I don't get it until next week. So it's, but I am, I'll put it in the chat here. There's 3 left. They'll all be gone in about a minute. Anyway, so yeah, everyone's typing. So yeah, exactly. So they're in the event chat there. So anyway, I ordered it. I don't know. It looks good on paper. It doesn't look incredible, like the best one ever, but it's $18 and it's smaller. It appears to be smaller than the actual case that you bought it in. And we'll see what that actually looks like. So anyway, so we'll see there. I'm planning to build one. In fact, one of the things I'm looking at is getting one that I can put 3 or 4 in. So I have one little thing that I can just stack them all into if I want. I'm trying to kind of build this this tiny little multicam kit that I can just have a 1510 or a backpack that I can just show up and just open it up, and it's got the computer that I need and everything else. And so in that process, now that we can do 4 inputs, that's one of the things I'm testing this week. We can do 4 inputs into a Zoom room. The idea is I can have a Zoom room and I have these little links and I can grab onto, set them all up and do something pretty interesting or send it to somebody. That's the goal. Anyway, next question.
Next question from Paul Terry Wallace. What's the best Kindle or reading device?
I'll go with Javier.
The Kindle that I like the most to replicate like the paper experience is the Kindle Paperwhite. Not only the screen is like super crisp, you can read it in daylight and it works perfect. You can read it at night and it works perfect. But also, since I've got my iPhone 12 Pro Max, between the size of the screen and I think it's easier on the eyes, I use it a lot because it's the device that I have always with me. So I have like 5 minutes to read standing in line, I can read something. So to get through things, I use the iPhone, but to enjoy the experience, I use the Paperwhite.
Go ahead, TJ.
We just got my daughter the Kindle Sketch, or the newer one with the stylus for handwriting recognition, or not recognition, but to be able to take notes. And it has the same screen as the Kindle Paperwhite, but larger. And the stylus, the delay for the handwriting, 0 delay. Really impressive.
Question for you. Well, how much is that, by the way?
It was a couple $100.
Yeah. And
It's
then
like $250 or something.
and then another question is, so and does it do Bluetooth for your, if you, because it does, they'll read the books, right? The Kindles will read the books.
Yeah, so this because she has tons and tons of books in the Kindle and world, so she wanted to keep to the Kindle thing, but she also takes notes for her work. So this was sort of the best of both worlds for her.
But she can listen to those books as well, right? It just
I don't know if she does the listening part or not. That I do not know.
because my understanding is that the Kindle books will just play back anything. It's got a text to speech or whatever, and it'll play back any of those. It's a little trickier when you're trying to do it on your iPhone. What you have to do is install the Alexa app, and then what you'll do is you'll ask Alexa to play the song or play the book, and it'll actually still do it. But it's like this weird roundabout way to get there. Go ahead, Javier.
You can also, for some books, you can buy the Audible version, and the Audible version and the Kindle version get synced up. So you can start
really?
reading. Yeah, you can read, like, you get to page 35, and you switch to the audiobook, and it starts where you left the page. So it's a very nice experience.
But you have to buy both of them. So you have to be really,
but they give you a discounted price if you buy the Kindle one for the Audible one. So you pay like 1.5 times, not 2 times.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, I have a lot of both, books but I don't usually cross them over. I make decisions like, is it going to be visual? I get a Kindle. If it's all going to be text, I get Audible, and I just kind of go back and forth. I will say that listening to the Audible or the Kindle versions, I learned that I could listen to a book faster with a computer reading it than a human, and so I've been trying to figure out how to do that more often. Go ahead, TJ.
The name of that is called the Kindle Scribe for anybody looking. I just want to make sure I got the correct name out there.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Would there be any home automation power management systems like Savant that support an open API for gathering data and sending commands, or would I be restricted to their proprietary app?
Go ahead, John.
I missed the button. I know our Crestron system used C#, and so it was completely open. You had complete accessibility to all the hardware via C#. And so I'm sorry Nigel's not here today. He's on his way to Vegas.
Yeah, and for our producers, we have a little bit more time. We've been cutting through these questions really fast. We've got time for about five or six more general questions. If you're actually if you have a couple before we get to the top of the hour, or we'll start early. But if you have a couple of the general questions you wanna ask, go ahead and throw those in. Let's go to the next question.
From Kenneth Jones in Seattle, Washington. Kenneth asked, my OBS feed into Facebook every Sunday still shows micro stalls. Is that me or Facebook, or just the way things are?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Mac or PC? That's the question. My OBS is not running at all on my Mac. I can run it for days and days and days on my PC without any problem.
And you're talking about the newest version won't run on your Mac?
Yeah. It runs. It kills my processor in about 15 minutes.
Interesting.
Goes to 100%.
Yeah, I will say that it is, in general, OBS on the Mac is not a great experience. It's because it's just not that many people using it in relation to the number of people on the PC. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, if you're going to Facebook on a PC, I would definitely consider vMix, even the most basic one, because you can do 1080 instead of 720, which looks a lot better. So consider going with something that works, that's solid. If it's a Mac, you might want to roll back one version if you upgraded to the latest version, which is more stable.
Yep. And the other thing to look at is just always look at what your processor is doing. So if you're over 60%, you shouldn't be streaming. Like, I mean, in my opinion, like, you shouldn't run a streaming computer, like especially something like OBS or Wirecast or whatever. We found that at about 60%, because you get peaks, and where you're seeing those micro stalls is for some reason something's happening. It's peaking up to 80, 90% and going back down again. And so you want to make sure that if you're 80% when it peaks, it's hitting 100, it's tapping 100 and then having anomalies. And so keeping it at 60% in general is a strong recommendation. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I guess it's the typical troubleshooting things that we think about, because all the things that you suggested could also be the problem. There could be a bandwidth issue. There could be something going on that's funny there, and there could be something else on the computer. Do you know, just another tip is that Zoom live streaming, if you happen to have a 1080 account, will stream to Facebook in 1080 as well. And so I do that every week, and that works really well. And that's one less streaming device that I need, because I'm doing the show in Zoom anyway. And so that's just another little thing. But it's testing all those different things. Of course, having a hardware device would be great too, right? So an ATEM, at least an ATEM, or there's lots of other hardware streaming devices that could do the task for you too. So it's a matter of testing all those things and seeing what works best.
Go ahead, Sky. No,
I apologize. Clicking the next one. Apologies.
Next question.
Tom Ferguson, in Phoenix, Arizona, and here on our panel. Did the panel have any surprises from Santa this year?
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, Mrs. Santa definitely surprised me. I've got this down here, and she made me this cover for my telestrator.
Oh, look at that. That's very nice. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, he ate all of my chocolate chip cookies while binge watching The Mandalorian.
Go ahead, Sky.
This is the question I meant to ask or respond to. And ironically, we got some new pans, very nice ones from Sur La Table. And I was advised to use Barman's Friend to do the cleansing with. So that's because apparently the protein sticks to protein, and this has protein in it of some kind. And it says very lightly use it and make your pans last forever.
It's interesting. Barman's Friend.
Yeah.
These are cast iron. Or just
no, I got a fancy from Denmark. I got the fancy ones. Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. Very good. TJ.
Alex, I know you will be a fan of this one. The entire Good Eats cookbook series has has arrived at our house this year.
So awesome. That's great. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I got a foot spa, which was a total surprise. That's not Jewish, by the way.
I was
foot spa.
Yeah.
And so I was able, on Christmas Day, I was able to watch a particular Christmas service, live stream service from America, and I had my feet in this foot spa. I may never have attended church in a better fashion than having my feet in a foot spa.
What's a foot spa? Is it just like one of the things that rubs your feet, or is it? No, water, and it has bubbles and jets that spray, and it heats the water as well. I know that's not related. I know that's not really related to what we do, and you probably shouldn't do it around your equipment. But wow, that sounds great.
Talk about really static sinks.
When you talk about like that, it'd be funny to have. We always think of absurd things you could do with production crews, and you can have a production crew and everybody has a foot spa. Like everyone's just like they all sit down, they have their little foot spa, they have a masseuse that walks around and rubs their shoulders, and they just kind of do. This is how we do long-term streams. Go ahead, John.
I have the greatest wife ever. She bought me an assortment of cable ties for my office here.
Oh, that's great.
It's a great present.
There we go. TJ.
Hey, Sky, are you talking about Barkeeper's Friend?
That's the one.
It's a pumice. It's a very fine, super fine pumice that's really great at polishing metals.
That's great. Yeah, I got the American Test Kitchen recipe book, so that goes with the show. My wife gave me that, and then I got her a June, one of the June, I don't know, air fryer / thing that connects to your iPhone. I'm not sure really I got it for her or for me, but I put her name on it, so we're all gonna have a good time with it. But she wanted an air fryer, and we went a little overboard. Go ahead, Jesse.
Look, I just got to brag. My wife found me a signed, I can't see it because of the flare. It's a signed Stan Freberg she found at Goodwill.
Very good.
There we go.
Good. That's awesome. All right, next question.
Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts. Craig asked, do you have any end-of-year gear or software review purge rituals?
I go Jesse.
We take advantage of December 20th to January 1st. It's usually silent from the clients. So we do a full wipe on all the computers and we purge the OS. Also, this is the year that we are finally decommissioning the Final Cut 7 computer that we've been maintaining.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I tend to find what panelists need and send it to them. Nick Jeshishin was got a delay box that I think is still running in his box, or in his whatever you want to call it, in his blue screen world, maybe 2 years later. So yeah, I send stuff to panelists.
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, like I was saying before about formatting computers, particularly with Mac, when the latest OS tends to come out around September, you get a few 0.1, 0.2 iterations that come out around this time of year. And so now it's a good time, I find, it's a good time to do a complete format and fresh install of that OS. And that's what I try to do in this downtime.
Next question.
Paul Terry Wallace, Austin, Texas. Paul asks, globally, what apps are most relevant for people to connect?
Go ahead, Sky.
Well, Jeopardy had a question last night of what made the most amount of profit, and they said it was Zoom. So I'm going to think that if the question comes over on the game Jeopardy, that's a good global question right there. But I'm also very intrigued that Discord is going to be the new lingua franca of humanity. I think that's going to be a thing this year.
Yeah, I think Discord and Zoom are the two big winners, right now as far as connecting people. Next question.
Javier Alfaro from Mexico City, Mexico, and here on our panel, I want to upgrade my parents' Wi-Fi and have been able to manage it remotely. What mesh system would the panel recommend?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I'm going with the Netflix Orbi 6. Works great. You put the master in a certain place in the house, and everything else is a satellite, and they all talk to each other and blink and flash and do wonderful things. But I would not trust it for communicating over Zoom.
Go, Jason.
Yeah, of course, not for Zoom, but for your own peace of mind, I would say that dollar for dollar, Eero is the easiest way to go.
Next question.
Next question from Lois Richter in Davis, California. What is your favorite way to keep up with new software?
Go ahead, Sky.
Buy a new computer. It's the safest way, and it's not because there's always going to be something that doesn't connect with the other software that upgraded that to that, and then that doesn't talk to that. So it's just kind of starting with a clean slate. It sounds silly, but I really hate the software that automatically upgrades itself, because it always breaks something somewhere else, but you have to do it. So try a clean slate. And the prices are not what they used to be. So
I usually need a project. Like I need a project to use it with, or something I want to experiment with. It's really hard for me. I can't really just open up an app and just kind of hit the buttons and follow the tutorials. I usually just need to know what I need to know right then. So a lot of times I have an app, I'll open it up. I will then go to Google. I'll usually open up YouTube and start searching. I want to do this with this app. I want to do this with this app. And then if not, then I start talking to I try to find someone at the company or people that I know that know it and start asking them questions. But I need something that needs to be done usually in a certain time period to really learn something. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. I've been using After Effects for 20 years, and I still go to YouTube. If I run into something where I wish I could use a fractal to generate this, I'm like, and I go over to YouTube, and sure enough, there'll be like 8 tutorials to make that happen.
Go, TJ.
I took this question a little differently. I took it to mean, how do we learn about new software and whatnot? And here in office hours, I'm finding about all sorts of amazing new pieces of software I never knew existed before.
Absolutely. Next question.
Next question from Douglas Carmichael. Many concerts and live events have been using virtual backgrounds and compositing the live performers into a 3D environment in real time. How would that be done without a Nick Justison-style studio setup that has a fixed green background?
Well, I mean, it depends on how wide you want to be. So I think that if you need LED walls, if you really want a full stage, you might especially if you're in front of other people. If you're not, you can theoretically do it with a green cyc that's a lot bigger than Nick's version of that. If you just want to be sitting there, you could probably get away with something that's a smaller green screen. It's not trivial to do it well, is what I would say. Is that it's not like in most concerts that I've seen haven't done it very well. so I think that it's, that most of them have been pretty rough to watch. So a lot of times they're run more by technologists that are interested in what's possible and not really understand what they're doing technically. And so I think that's usually the challenge there. All right, I'm going to kick that last one back. And by the way, I kicked a couple questions back. One was for time. Another thing is just if you're asking, if somewhere it says, why are we doing something in office hours, or could we change something in office hours, or how do we make that work? Those are Sunday questions. So just if you're listening, just know that those will tend to get pushed back to you. And our recommendation is then to come Sunday and ask them. But we're trying to kind of tighten up our process here to really stay in as best we can focused on the tech. But things that are more self-referential related to how we do things, we're kind of pushing off to the Sunday discussion. We highly recommend that you bring those questions to us on Sunday because we're happy to talk through them then. All right. We are now changing subjects to talk about Midjourney. Midjourney has been out, I think, since September, I believe, and it is it's a pretty interesting product. It is I found it interesting doing some research for the show that it was one of the founders is the founder of Leap Motion. Leap Motion was a little thing that did hand. It would track your hands to get motions. I didn't realize that's the same person. So
it was so far ahead of its time.
Yeah. And so anyway, so Midjourney is one of a group. So there are a variety. Google has its own, and I'm going to now space on. I know it has. I want to call it Dream. It's Dream Machine Time. Something I can't remember now, but because we haven't used it that heavily. Obviously, DALL-E is the one that really splashed in and got everybody going. So DALL-E and DALL-E 2 are the two that are there. And then, of course, there's Stable Diffusion, which is something that you can actually download onto your computer and train it yourself. So there's a lot of different different styles of these AI models that are building these, and it's not just AI. We're going to talk about the artwork today. It's not just the AI artwork. It is but it's also the Chat GPT is another thing that we've talked about. We'll talk about Midjourney today and talk about art today because there's a lot of things to kind of begin to unwrap. What I will say is we will be talking about AI in some way, shape, or form every month in office hours because it's really important to our industry. Whether you like it or not, or whether you're afraid of it or not, or whatever, it's really important to understand it because it's coming and it's coming really fast, like into our industry. And it's evolving very, very quickly. And so we need to understand what it does and what it doesn't do. One of the things that, so to give you a brief and what I will say also is that I am not an AI expert. I'm not an AI researcher. I will give you my understanding of how this all works. And then people here will probably correct me on some of it. And then when we talk about it in a month, people will talk about it or answer questions throughout the month. We'll keep on correcting those things because, I think that sometimes even people working on it don't quite understand what's happening, but a lot of them are pretty smart about it. Now, as my understanding of how this works, and a lot of this is this diffusion model that people talk about. And what basically is happening is the first thing that it does is deconstructing the images. So it basically diffuses those images out, adding noise to the calculation as it pulls them apart. So it pulls them apart and then tries to put them back together again and sees how closely it can match the one that it started with. So pull it apart, put it back together. And then there is how well did it actually be able to figure out how to reconstruct it? Because as it learns to reconstruct it, it learns what parts are important and what parts are key to that thing, right? Now, the other thing that it's doing is it's having text pairs. So it's pairing up. It has most of the information that it's interested in has metadata. It says this picture is a picture of a bird or a picture of a whatever, and so it starts to understand what it's looking at contextually. Not really understand it, but connect it. I should not say understanding because it does not understand anything. This is a organism without a brain. Like we think that it's our AI overlords, but there is no brain here. This is like it's doing this thing where it figures out it's attaching text meanings and Ike Potter points out that it's machine learning, not AI. So that's a good thing. But the machine learning, but even then, I would say learning is a big word, as is intelligence, for what it's doing. Basically, it's connecting words to images, and it's trying to be able to figure out how to reconstruct images from their molecular parts, and then pull them back together. Now, what that allows for is if you put a bunch of words together, it can grab parts of all those images and pull them back together into something that is, that comes back as a picture with all of the words. So it knows if I'm typing something in, I'm saying I want to have, I want to have all of these words together. So now it's going to start trying to it's going to go out and pull in from that diffuse model. It's going to pull all that stuff together all at one time and end up with an image. And it'll be like, how did I do? And sometimes it's a complete mess, and sometimes it's really funny. And I'll show you a couple images, and then we're going to jump into, I think we've got this is going to be, I think, a popular one today. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of folks here. I'll show you a couple images just to kind of get started. This is, let's see here, where should we start? Basically you can put in, you can connect a lot of odd things. And so we've been sitting around doing it. I have a Midjourney, whatever, the pro membership or whatever. So I pump a lot of things in that I'm kind of thinking about there. So this is to give you an idea of what the search terms are, just to give you a sense of this. This is Princess. We were doing this at an ILM Christmas party, or not ILM, but a lot of ILMers were at this Christmas party. So there was some Star Wars references, but I put in Princess Leia as a robot in the style of Rembrandt. So it gives us kind of a Middle Ages, steampunkish Princess Leia, but that's how it kind of connects those things. I asked it for Darth Vader in the style of H.R. Giger, and you get something like that. I asked for a steampunk Millennium Falcon, and I got something like that. I misspelled Millennium Falcon, and I got a falcon. I said steampunk Millennium Falcon, and I got an actual falcon. And that's what you can say. It just put together what you asked for, not what you wanted. And so, but also I put, you can put in a lot of things that you're trying to imagine. So one of the things that I put in was the turbo encabulator, which is a very important part of our technology history. And so it built a turbo encabulator for us. And then, Chewbacca in the style of Hello Kitty. You get little cute little Chewbaccas that are there. I find that it renders minions exceptionally well. So here are, I did, This Is Fine. There's this thing with a dog in a building that's burning. I said, this is fine, but with minions. So This Is Fine with minions. I also asked it to do minions in the Roman ages, and I got, lots of minions ready to fight. We were doing this in After Hours, which we will do again soon. Minions crossing the Delaware was a request. So, and I realized that a history teacher could just use these as a way to engage their the kids would probably enjoy these types of things. I did do minions playing poker, because you had dogs playing poker, but I figured, what would minions playing poker? And I never really thought of what old minions look like. And so if you look at some of those, you get to see at least what the AI thinks of as old there. But you can also put in just connect a lot of random things. So I put in octopus in the style of Giger with Rembrandt lighting, and I ended up with that. So you end up with a lot of really, it just keeps it, and it doesn't have a lot of rules there. Now, more recently, as we got ready for Christmas, I started doing Santa Clauses so that I could send them out as little cards. And so here's Santa Claus. This is the steampunk Santa Claus. I think I tweeted out there. This is, let me see if I can get my keyboard in the right place. This is Santa Claus on a dragon. I was kind of doing a Game of Thrones Santa Claus. This is Santa Claus building kind of doing some more, building up the next toy in the shop. Now, what's interesting about it is, and this is why you see it doesn't really know what it's doing, is, this looks, when at first glance, and this is the way AI works right now a lot of these tools, at first glance, it looks amazing. You look at it and the lighting is amazing and his face is amazing, but you'll notice that he has way more fingers than right now. For a while it was having trouble with faces, and what it really has trouble with now is eyeglasses, which it did pretty good job here. It doubled it up a little bit, but there's all kinds of versions of hands that are what most people will look at pretty quickly. And I just kind of go, well, that's part of the game at the moment. It'll only be that way for another month or two. This is my brother is a DP, so I sent him this. This is his Christmas card. Of someone shooting with the craziest. It just put together the craziest camera I could possibly imagine. It just kind of gobbles. My sister is a photographer, so I had Santa in the North Pole taking photos with the elves. Santa Claus doing an interview, which I thought was kind of funny. And what's amazing is just how well it figures out all this lighting. Santa Claus rocking out. I thought that was a lot of fun. And Santa Claus again doing some more construction. The hand was pretty good here. Got a little chunk taken out of it, but otherwise, again, I think that what you're seeing there is a beautiful image. Like the lighting and how it figures it all out is kind of amazing. Santa Claus in a jet coming in hot with presents. So I thought that was a lot of fun. I had some friends that fly jets, and so I thought that would be fun to send them. So what I thought was interesting was the ability to customize all my Christmas cards. Like being able to write something and do something that is specific to each person. And I was like, I'm never buying a greeting card again. And that we'll get back into that in a second. But I don't think that the real risk for artists is that people are going to use this and sell things. I think the real risk is that they're going to use them and just use them, for what they're doing, rather than trying to worry about whether they can copyright it or not. Now, another thing that we just discovered, and I was trying to figure this out, is you can add that's just me. There's a photograph. It's but I added this, so you can add a link into Discord and say, I can add a link. So I start off with that link and then tell it the other parts of what I want to do to that link. So this photo is this is on twit.tv. It's my profile photo. So it was just a random photo of me that's on the internet. It's fairly evenly lit. I have a fairly neutral pose. So those are things that I think make a difference in how accurately it can grab onto it. And then I just started to go to town to give you a sense of what it did. I could be it gave me a Jedi, which I thought was kind of fun. I could go more manga. so that, as a Jedi, which I thought was a lot of fun as well. You can do, here's your typical Iron Man style. The next action film that I want to be in is there. Now, remember, this is just from that one photo. So there's no, with a lot of the other ones, it's asking you to put 40 or 50 photos in. This is just a photo, and it just starts figuring it out. Me as the Hulk, want to make me mad, that's there. Then I put in Simpsons, and I got something slightly different. So that there's me as the Simpsons. I think I had another one that was more. I think I said me as Homer. And so it kind of mixed and matched the flavors there. So it's a lot of fun. Me just drinking in a bar in the 16th century is kind of a fun little one there. So anyway, so that's those are the kinds of things that you can do with it. Right now, to give you a sense of and again, our goal here is to kind of show you a bunch of stuff, give you some ideas. I'll pull up Discord while we're talking. I'll pull up Discord so that I can show you like what it actually looks like when you do it. But it's a really interesting thing. And again, I strongly recommend joining the Midjourney community on Discord. If you're already in Discord, you need to see what's happening. You need to see it's happening. It's the largest Discord community in the world. It's 6.5 million people, and they're all figuring this out together. And there's I think artists can sit on one side and say, well, we shouldn't be doing this, but this is, I guess, the last thing I'll say before we jump into the panelist is, we've watched these disruptions quite a few times. Like this is not the first one we saw, and we're always told it'll be the end of everything. But, when photographers started taking pictures, there's a lot of artists whose their big business was doing portraits, and they'd figured out a skill, and they had, and then what had to happen then is the Impressionists and everything else started to happen because you couldn't make money just doing portraits anymore because they had a machine that did that. We saw that, when we went to film, everyone thought that stage would end, but it didn't. It's not the same as far as the level of what people expect, but it didn't go away. I was in, during the 70s and 80s, we had this thing called synthesizers that suddenly allowed someone without as much, technical skill to put together something very complex. In the same thing we heard the same thing when we saw rap, where people were taking samples and sequencers and putting these things together and building something that's very, very creative based on other things. It was and it became the thing, right? And so and then in the 90s we saw Photoshop. I was one of those folks that was getting paid minimum wage learning Photoshop putting Cytex operators out of business, and digital topography by itself just changed the whole world. So this disruption is something that happens all the time with technology, and kind of, especially in the art world, it changes the way things work. Even the image obscura changed the way things happened in the Middle Ages. Like when people started realizing that, we saw not very real, very real. What happened there? That was because they figured out how to project somebody onto a wall where they could get all their proportions correct. And so anyway, all of these technologies have moved us forward, in what we're doing. I do think that there's a mistake that people keep on thinking that these things are cutting and pasting someone else's images into it. It's not what's happening. It's learning from those images and then it's rebuilding new images from it. It's not a fast Photoshop, which I think a lot of artists seem to think is cutting and pasting from those things. And so I think those are other things that are important to notice. Go ahead, John.
Office hours now with AI. If we say that, the market value goes up by $100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So the interesting thing about this is 30 years ago when we were all contemplating AI and robots, we always thought it would be the mundane things to go first, but the creativity in AI as the first milestone is quite interesting. But I agree with what Alex says. We still have a long way to go. But it's, Nigel, and I got Nigel started yesterday on Midjourney. For him as a branding guy, this is super valuable for him to think up ideas and brands and logos and stuff. Super useful for that kind of work.
And I think for teachers, if I was a teacher, I would have the subject matter of whatever I'm talking about in Minions or The Simpsons or whatever. I'd be doing it all the time, because kids would come in and be like, "Oh, this is," they'd be laughing. They'd want to see what the next thing I did, there, and I would be using them, as Nigel said, in my keynotes all the time. Go ahead, Grant.
So I just had a couple of examples as well, and so this is the image of myself that I used, and so I said, "Make me a cartoon," and these are the interesting ones that I got. And then as a hero, and so it came up with that. That's the hands again, as Alex was saying, the hands are a little messed up.
He just doesn't know what to do.
No, that's right. So and then I said, put me on top of the Burj Khalifa, and so there I am standing on the top. And then that's my Simpsons character, which is kind of cool. This is me as Grant Kenobi.
That's great.
So that one was pretty cool. And then the Hulk as well. And then I said, what about me in a production control room? And so that's me, except I don't know where I'm sitting or where my legs are.
You're in the production control room. You're not just sitting around.
I'm inside of it. And then as you can see, that shirt that I was wearing, I've got a collar, and so even as Superman, I still have a collar. Apparently, that's an important thing. So then I started messing around. I was trying to work out if you could do multiple images, and so the best I got up with, I set a Zoom call, and so I took a Zoom call, and so on the left there, those 6 are a Zoom gallery view, and it made that. And that's pretty impressive. Like when you see it in a gallery view like that, it looks, you have to really look closely then and go, oh, they're not real. And then I said, make them a cartoon. And so I took that same image and said, make a cartoon, and that's what it did.
Well,
so
and what was it? How did you tell it you wanted a grid that was 3 by 3, or did you?
No, I didn't.
Just make a Zoom call with cartoons? Yeah,
I said a gallery view the first time on the left. I didn't actually even say gallery. I just said a Zoom call, and so that's what it did. And then I fed that image back in again and said make a cartoon. And what was interesting is that it made the 9 out of the 6, and so that was interesting to me.
But that's Greg Gibson in top left there, isn't
it? So then what I was trying to do is I then took an image of I took Alex's image and my image, and said, make us as Yoda and Luke being trained, right? But all I got was Alex as Yoda. But I kept pushing it, and what I did is I just photoshopped Alex's image next to mine, so it was one image, and then said, put us on a movie set. And so then I got that. So it was interesting that I was able to get two characters,
Right.
and that was
And did you put them on either side that way, or did it
Yes.
just? Yeah.
Yeah, they were either side like that, side by side, and that's how I got that. So that's a murder mystery that will be coming out next summer with Alex and I.
Yeah.
You can work out what's happening there. But it also did this, where you can see on the right, that's actually a composite of Alex and I. So if you ever wondered what we would look together if somehow we were able to respawn. And so then I was just playing around more with what you could do with Iron Man. And then the last one here, actually there is a term to use, which was realistic hands. And so I put that in.
Closer.
And it's closer, but it's still not. And for those people that used to see me on Zoom, that is what my body looks like. So
yeah, it was really easy to do that.
Just so you know,
You said realistic proportions, realistic hands of the way I normally am. Yeah, exactly.
Just me.
It looks like the Umbrella Gang or whatever their show is.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Now, first of all, jumping into this is absolutely exhilarating. It's so much fun to play with these tools. And I encourage people who are just jumping in to run your commands in tandem, like build a DALL-E account and build a Midjourney account and put in the same input and just see how the two different algorithms handle the same thing. What really impressed me about Midjourney was its understanding of what I'll call lyrical intent. So my wife has a band called Thrilling End of Everything, and we chose that name because it's kind of like pulpy and overblown. And I typed that in without any other prompt, just the thrilling end of everything. And what it delivered really captured that full intent that we had going in with that band name. I'm going to go through the 4 images that it delivered, but each one feels like what we intended it to feel like when we created that name. And it's just so cool to see ideas manifested through this entirely new lens. I can't express enough joy about this whole process and this whole art.
There you go, TJ.
So a couple mechanical type things. When you get in, you're into what's called a newbie channel, and there's hundreds and hundreds of messages going by, like so fast. It's really kind of hard. It's overwhelming, really, to begin with. But if you decide to link this, if you join Midjourney and actually link your Discord account to an actual Midjourney profile, then as you render your images, you can go to your Midjourney at midjourney.com, and you will see the images over there. So you're not having to scroll through and find your image back in Discord somewhere. Also, I noticed when as it's rendering the preview, it makes what's called a WebP graphic. And when it is finished, then it generates a PNG graphic. So you kind of have to wait until you get the little upscale or variation buttons at the bottom to grab that image. If you kind of grab the image before, you'll get a WebP graphic, which is not kind of what you want. So, and of course, like everybody, this is Millennium Falcon in the style of Dr. Seuss with steampunk.
Exactly. And the ability to mix and match styles is an amazing thing. Go ahead, Sky.
In 1984, I bought the 128 Macintosh because it could draw a straight line for me in Mac Paint. And this has that same seminal moment of amazement for me because it makes me look good. But what's I'm kind of giddy about here is I'm going over onto the daily theme and watching maybe millions of people iterating a subjective thought about a specific topic on a daily basis. And again, from a community basis, I'm giddy about people's imaginations being reignited rather than being a couch potato and being entertained by somebody else's imagination. But and I'm stealing like an artist in the concept of the theme of is one thing, but then how they created it with all of the verbs and the nouns that they're putting in on top of that. That's the little recipe back behind. And the iterations of that are, again, all of this is subjective. And I have a question here about what is it going to be called? And I've lost the thread of what is this new concept called? And I think we're going to be watching it, termed by somebody, and we'll all agree at some point. So I'm giddy about this.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So Grant, how do you do the two? I want to do like celebrity love children, or for like a high school reunion, do love children between various different people in my class. How do you load the two pictures?
I just did them as two URLs. So I did one URL, and actually an easy way to do that too is to just drag an image into Discord, and then on the image you can right click and copy link, right? So that way it's actually uploaded to Discord, and then you can reuse that URL.
Oh, so you don't have to have it on a real HTTP. You can just have it on the Discord. You can really use the link that was created in Discord, and that's enough.
Correct. Correct. Yeah,
that's way easier.
Yeah, and yeah.
And the one thing.
So I was just saying, yeah. So I just took my URL and Alex's and said, what I wanted to do with the two of them, and it created the coming together of both.
And I think that this is the thing that's interesting, is that number one is you'll see a lot of this is us talking to each other about all of this stuff. Like we're sitting there, trading notes, and the Midjourney community is a giant version of us trading notes, and there's, and I will say that the argument that it is just the AI or the diffusion model doing this is starting to fade, because the problem is yeah, it's producing something, but when you look at the amount of work that's being put into the search terms, I think that you could make an argument that, in the same way that you're using a synthesizer, a sequencer, or whatever, I'm not pushing the actual notes, but there is an enormous amount of study. I mean, there's one of the things I think that went out on the email was a link to all the different styles in GitHub. So someone put together this incredible link, and it should be in the email that went out, of all the styles that you can start to put in, or brainstorming those. And people are paying attention to all these things, and we're watching what other people are doing and what text generates what image, and different people approaching it. And then we keep on learning from each other. And when you start seeing us trading notes and learning from each other and getting better at it and asking questions, it stops being something that I just put something in and got something out. I think that fundamentally a good lawyer is going to be able to argue that it is skill, that it's not just random. I think that a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that are on both sides of the issue, but I think that it's really important to figure out how to utilize this. And I admit that my whole career has been, I just look at the next thing. I don't look at whether it should start or whatever. I'm just like, okay, well, how do I take this thing and add it to the thing that I'm already doing? And I think for pre-visualization and just enjoyment, like that, and I'll keep on coming back to it. It's so much fun. It's like the TikTok. A lot of people make TikToks because they want to be funny. They hope that more people will watch them, but people put stuff on YouTube because they want to as well. And this self-generative society, and the distance between your imagination and a picture is now just continuing to, get much, much shorter. And I think that that's going to be the thing. We're going to see a lot more imagination because of things, because people don't have to go through all the work to produce each image. And even an artist couldn't keep up. I mean, I'm producing things that I know would take someone a week, and I'm doing 4 of them every 15 seconds, and so so that's the thing, that it's just the whole thing is going to speed up. All right. But you also, you do get, you do get things that it's hard to, it will produce things that are hard to get out of your head. Case in point, I asked it about Minions taking a picture in the 1860s, and I got a Minion couple from the 1860s, with beard and anyway. So the Minions are really fun. It's kind of my cross check. All right, let's go to the first question.
Sky Gleason from Seattle, Washington, asking, a photographer uses a camera to make art. A musician may use a piano to make art. What is the person called that uses Midjourney to make art?
Go ahead, Sky.
Well, Alex, as you know, in marketing, a phrase can, become the name of something. And sometimes it's not the accurate concept, but I did see a thread of this conversation being had inside the community already. And there was a digital artist, digital AI artist. And so I'm wondering if we could make that title, we could be known for something. Just saying.
You go ahead, Tom.
Well, I think they ought to be called a nerd artist or a geekical engineer.
Go ahead, TJ.
Journeyman.
Yeah, exactly. German. I was thinking of a diffusionist. Diffusionist. They're using the diffusionist. All right. Next question.
A confabulator. TJ Asher from Minneapolis, Minnesota is here. What are some useful prompts and parameters?
Yeah, so I'll show you real quickly what it looks like when you're actually doing it. Let's see if I can. Then I'll go to. So here's what it looks like here. Here's me as Superman. That was one I didn't show you. But I mean, trying to be Santa Claus, but it didn't work. So the first, how this actually looks once you've subscribed. So this is after I've subscribed to Midjourney. I can go imagine. And I can't type. There we go. Imagine, and it'll hit a prompt. And now is when you're going to start to figure out what you want to do. So you could do imagine a steampunk. So you can put those styles anywhere you want, but you could do a steampunk race car in let's say style of. So in the style of, not style, the style of is important because you can do it in the style of all kinds of things. It can be art types, so abstract, brutalist, all any kind of things like that, or specific traditional artists. It's really not. It's not really. I can't say that in the style of Guy Cochran or Grant. It doesn't. You're such a small. It won't have enough samples. It's really like in the style of, and we'll just say Rembrandt because we'll end up with something totally goofy that way. Now. Not Rembrandt, but that would give me something completely different. It's very, spelling is important. So then you can say things like comma glam lighting, which is a common one. Glam lighting is going to give it that kind of real. A lot of the ones that I have there. Now, when you're doing Rembrandt and glam lighting, I have no idea what will actually come out the other end. The other one is that it'll give you square outputs all the time. And so what I do is I do AR, a -- AR 3.2. No, it doesn't do 16:9 right now. The new version of this doesn't do that. So then once you do that, you'll hit return, and now it's going to start. Now I have it set to fast and private, so that means it'll go. It's prioritized on the server. These are $20,000 servers that you're borrowing time from, and you can also set it to. If you have a basic membership, you can set it to relaxed. Relaxed will take longer to process, and you can't, zoom. You can't scale up. You just get the 4-ups. And so, but what you can do is run a whole bunch of stuff in relaxed, and then go back with fast and do full size versions of it. The reason I don't do that very often is because I find that it's more important for me to generate the full size ones immediately because I'm generating so many images that I won't get them. I won't end up, and then I've had times when the server got updated or got put back together, and I couldn't go back and actually update the high res versions, which was a bummer. So here we go. So here we have that, and then to what was talked about before. So it's now generated these, which is pretty cool. And then I can hit open original, and what that's going to do is open it on a web page, and that's going to be the full resolution that's there, and it'll remind me later to put LastPass in. Anyway, so there's the images there. Now, if I want to get one, like let's say I really like, so each one of these has been built, and again, this is made up out of the ether with, that I don't think anyone's ever put that term in. And what I'll do is I'll close this, and I can go, okay, now I want to see an upscale of this one. And I want you to do more versions of that one. I might want more versions of this one too. So now it's going to start those pieces there, and we'll come back to that. I'll show you what happens when it pops up there. Let's go ahead into the. Hold on. Go ahead, Grant.
Oh yeah, I was just going to add before, and this relates to things to get the most out of it. There is in the settings. So when you do /settings, there's an option of a remix mode, which is what you need to be able to get it to do those remixes and for it to take an image in, and then also for it to be able to merge sort of two images together and things to create those love children.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then this is the let's see if I so here you have it started to produce. These are the new again, these are the new spawns. So what this did is it said, oh, I'm close, and I'm just going to give you slightly different versions of the same thing. So the correction is much smaller there. And then here is the other one that did the same thing. So it's just, if you look at it, you'll notice it's just making some adjustments to the calculation. And again, I will say that I could definitely, like a lot of times you pop out these images and you're like, I could build a whole movie around that image, I could do, something. So from a brainstorming perspective, it's a pretty exciting thing. And oftentimes the upscaling, it will spawn out the new versions much faster than the upscaling. So that oftentimes takes a little longer for it to get to. Let's go to the next question.
Alex, if you to do /info, how many images does it say that you've? So /info will tell you how many images you've created
since I signed up.
Yeah. /info.
Oh man, hold on. I did /info and then and
then enter. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I have
lifetime usage.
Lifetime usage is 6,650 images. And that's and then that's I think that's the fast.
That's total.
That's just fast.
Oh yeah, that would be fast. Yeah.
The relaxed usage is 2,727. So about almost 10,000 or 9,000 images that I've created since I signed up. Yeah, it's and I just signed up again. I've already burned through 25 of my 30 hours. The pro version, by the way, is again, I've just decided this is my favorite subscription. So I got the pro version and I went for the 1 year and just, I don't know. Suddenly the idea of playing games seems to be like a huge waste of time when I could be on Midjourney. So it just, I haven't played a single game of any kind since I signed up. And I think that's because it's just so much more fun than what you're doing. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the Midjourney, just so you see what the insanity that's going on here as well. This is Midjourney here. Now, this is the actual server. And what you're going to see are all of these things that are going on. Now, when you jump in, the first thing you're going to do is go to newbies, because this is where you can actually put in your stuff. This is folks that are getting started. You get a credit to make 25 images. And so you can get started and then decide whether you want to pay for it. So these are just newbies throwing ideas in. And the cool thing is you get to see what the search terms are. So you can see the search terms across here. You'll notice that these search terms are fairly short, and that while I do some short ones as well, and I'm showing ones that are short, you see here's someone who put their own link in there. But while I do some that are short, when you get into the more advanced crews, so that if you go down here to theme image generation, these are the folks that really, I think some of them only do this in their life. I think that they just literally sit here and do this stuff, and you'll see you'll start to see some stuff that gets much more detailed, related to this. And right now, let's see, I'll go to current here. Hold on, let's see. I will scroll down. And sometimes you'll see, just huge paragraphs of things here, but this one's actually pretty calm. But here's adorable little cosplayer, Kris Kringle, dressed up as Christmas Yule. It's in the Yule section here. So and so Yule is probably what this guy has a cool fool with a Yule mule, and it generated that. And for whatever reason, these ones aren't as long. Usually when you get into the daily theme, you start seeing these like paragraphs of stuff. Now, there is a fair number of limits. It's generally Now here's where you can start to see stuff. They're doing the AR 3.2 that I did. They're starting to call things out that they think make a difference. I think some of it, this is a little bit a mixture of science and superstition as what people put into these things to make this work. But you'll see that they're adding, I want rays of light, highly detailed photography, photorealistic, cinematic. I don't know if all of these at the same time make a difference. So, that's that's kind of the thing that you have to kind of look at there. So, but this is, you go to, like, you can see these little paragraphs describing what they want here. And then it has characters that are here. It has, this is the image prompts. This is people all using some version of an image prompt to get started. These are, multi-prompts that are here. So there's a lot of different things that are here. It's an enormous group of people, and they're all learning from each other. And the fact that you search inside of Discord for free means that you get what's genius about it is that it forces everybody to show their work. So so by seeing everybody's work all the time, it just creates this incredible mashup of these things. Anyway, next question.
Morgan Price in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Midjourney question. Can we get Midjourney to reuse a similar character across multiple images? Let's say we develop an AI character we want to insert in multiple scenes as part of storytelling.
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
Oh. Sorry, just cut out a bit. Yeah. So, yes, and in the same way that I was saying that you could use and you upload your own image, you can also reuse an image again and then push that back. And so, yeah, you can just keep using URLs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, if you did this, if you created that thing and then put it back in, you'd just be able to generate this inside of this environment. This inside of this environment would be the way to do that. It's cool. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey in Tromsø, Norway. Can we add Midjourney bot to the office hours Discord?
Yeah, we're working on it. So we'll probably have it within the week. We'll have a Discord bot in there that people can play with. Code Sky.
This reminds me of Ready Player One when he reaches out to all of the tribes and says, "Hey, come do a thing." And I felt the entire tribe move towards this thing all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's again, it's something that we all need to learn from each other, and I think we as a group could be learning a lot from each other as a whole. And we'll be doing some of these in after hours when I can, probably at least an hour a week, if not more, just where we just come in and just start throwing search terms in and just see what happens. I will say that we were sitting around with a bunch of ex-ILMers, sitting around drinking beers, throwing search terms in. It was really fun, because the creativity starts to just churn and people start throwing things out there. Well, I want this with this and this and this, and you end up with something pretty interesting. Next question.
Next question from Sky Gleason in Seattle, Washington. Which payment plan did you buy into and why?
Go ahead, Sky.
I'm starting small. I'm going with the $10, but I did do the annual yearly because this is my entertainment. And I'm sitting here, I've got the Newbies 184 channel, and it's got a big paragraph of things, but I'm physically watching this creativity flow past, and I'm watching teams attack a concept, like you said, multiple ideas coming together. Try this, try that, and so the multiple imaginations, exploding it even better and letting the machine do the heavy lifting. But I went with that medium plan.
There's the basic plan, which is $10 a month. There is a medium plan that is $30 a month. Then you can add $20 a month to it to make it a private, so that everyone doesn't see all the stuff that you're searching for. And then, but if you get the pro plan, which is $60 a month, so you end up paying $50 for medium and private. The $60 version gets you medium and private, but also twice as much server time. So it turns out the $60 a month makes a lot of difference if you can afford it. I'm on a show that talks about technology, so out of that money that I make on that show, the little small amounts of money I make, it affords me to buy things like this. Is like I'm keeping up with the Joneses, so I can talk about it on the show. So I think that I'm in a different situation than most. But what I would say is that it's it's really the most fun I've had in quite some time, and so I think that it's probably worth it. But you can do a lot for free to get started, and then decide what you want to do, from there. But it's an incredible, really incredible community to be part of. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, do you think we'll ever see on-premise hostable versions of Midjourney or similar tools? I could see it being useful for advertising agencies, for example.
Yeah, stable diffusion. Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
All of these platforms will have the ability to have the API, so you'll be able to pull any of these into any of your third-party applications.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
I think it would be good for inspiration, but the client changes would probably crash their servers.
Well, and again, I think that this is where I think there's going to be a trade-off for client artists, is that I haven't used anything directly other than Christmas cards and entertaining people. I haven't used anything that I generated out of Midjourney directly. And even then, if I had had more time, I probably would have fixed all the hands, like in all of those, all the pieces there. But what I would say is that I think that what you'll find is that if you want to brainstorm and show a client a bunch of ideas, you could show them a bunch of ideas that are there. And then if they say they like this one, the idea of being able to send them 30 or 40 styles that they may be interested in with their product or whatever they're doing is pretty exciting. I mean, it takes you a long time to do that. Then when they say, I want that, you're not going to be able to produce what they want with Midjourney. You're immediately going to have to go, now I need to build it, and now it is obviously figuring out a lot of the 3D information there because it's lighting it correctly. And so, or it's doing something that has that happen. And so at some point we're going to be able to generate models. And we already seen that with Point E, which is what's coming out from OpenAI. Point E is you type in something and get a 3D model out of it. And so I think that we're going to be starting to be able to get scenes, but eventually the funny thing is that 90% of the work in computer graphics is the last 10% of the image. And so Midjourney is really doing the first 10%, which is just, I'm going to push through all this stuff and give you ideas, but then it's still going to take artists to execute exactly what a client wants. Next question.
Eric Price in Kansas City, USA. Eric asks, Midjourney's upscaling seems to be random in terms of how large the final version is. What is the trick to high-def image results?
The highest I've seen, it's been a little lower in version 4. Version 3 was 2048 by 2048. Version 4 seems to be 15 something or other when it's square, and it depends on whether you're doing 3 by 2, which seems to just kind of crop it. But it does frame it that way. So it is limited. And again, it's because it has to come up with every one of those pixels. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, it seems to be 1024 wide. I haven't seen anything more than that, but it can go higher, and 1536 seems to go higher. And if it's square, it's 1024. I have seen a few people using like 4K as an option, and it doesn't go to 4K.
I think it does. I think it's telling it to be sharper. Like it
right.
So it works harder at being more realistic or more detail. It's like kind of like high detail. So 4K or 8K, but yeah, you don't get a higher resolution image. Yeah. Next question.
Sky Gleason, Seattle, Washington, asking, how can you get Midjourney to type the text you want to use for a logo or poster, etc.?
It doesn't understand text yet. Like it's just pulling images together. It's more like if you go into, some of the markets in Japan, you'll see a bunch of text of American letters that just look cool. Like the way that they're put together, they look nice. It's kind of how Midjourney approaches it. It's like, I don't know what the language is. I can't process it. You can't even use quotes or anything else. The best you could do possibly would be to upload an image of how you want that text to look and put it in there and then say, I want this with this text, and it might do it. But you are kind of nailing its calculation to the floor as well. So you have to kind of take that into account as well. Next question.
Next question from TJ Asher in Minneapolis, Minnesota. What do the different style indicators do? Style low, style medium, style high, style very high, etc.
I actually don't know. I haven't used those. So you're seeing in some of the folks are doing it, they're doing style high.
Yeah, in your settings, you can do, when you go into your settings, you can set how you want things to be and some of the defaults. And there are 4 different style settings. And I haven't been able to figure out what they do yet.
Well, and one of the reasons that I'm interested in having us look at this in general is for us to play with it. I think that we're going to try to bring more people on to talk about this, and again, keep on building from what we're doing here. And I think that what we want to do is play with it, come up with the questions that you're coming up with, and then talk amongst ourselves, do a little research. And again, we're going to do some labs inside of After Hours where we, are just hanging out and trying to figure these things out on our own. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one little tip that I found is outside of Discord is when you're back on the Midjourney site, midjourney.com app, and then you've got your own personal feed, but then you've got community feed. One of the cool things here is that you can click on an image, and then you can go and you can copy. Not only you can see the prompt that was down here, so this is the prompt for this one, but you can also go and copy the full command. And if I just put that in the URL, you'll see that the actual command had C20 in it and AR2 to 3. And so
I don't know what C20 is.
Yeah. I don't know.
The 2 to 3 is giving you the aspect ratio. That's
yes,
the AR,
absolutely.
Right?
Yep,
but I don't know what the I don't know what C20 means.
So there's a little bit more, that you can learn from these by getting that full command.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is all it is, and sometimes there's extra bits going on, which I think would be handed off from the parent. And that's the other cool thing with this is that you can follow the parent back, so then you can see if they when you're seeing that individual image, then you're seeing all the iterations of it as well. So
yeah. It's really cool. And again, I think that the best thing we can do is be brainstorming, play with it on your own, and then we'll come back together on labs and kind of work through it. Next question.
Mick Martley from Baraboo. Anyone else making depth maps for Midjourney? Create background concept for my indie virtual production stage with 2D image concepts, generate depth maps, bringing them into Blender and eventually Unreal Engine so I can track the camera and scene.
Rick, I would love to know how you're building depth maps. so that would be an interesting, like how you're building the depth maps from those would be fascinating to us. Next question.
Lois Richter in Davis, California asked, how does one make a second Discord account and how many can one have?
I wouldn't recommend it. Unless you're talking about just jumping into a new server. You don't need to create a new discount account, and I would definitely not do that. Like there's a bunch of security stuff that gets really complicated. I accidentally made two, and I just spent a couple days ago. I had to spend like an hour unwrapping those because they were part, and I just didn't realize I had done it. But I would not build two Discord accounts. You can change your name in each server, and if what you're talking about is how do you join another server. You just have to get an invite from someone. Just ask anybody on Discord that's already in Midjourney for the invite. They'll send you the invite. You click on it, and it just adds another server. I'm on like 25 servers, and so you just have another server down the side that you can jump into. But you don't have to have another Discord account. You can just jump into as many servers as you want. A note that you can drag them so that you can keep the ones that matter the most at the top, so that you can keep track of them. Now, next question.
Next question from Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts. Craig asked, how much can you get done without subscribing?
25 images, I think. I think you get 25 images, then you got to start throwing money in. And it starts at about $10 a month. So, you get a little bit at $10 a month. And I apologize because it's it's a rough addiction that you start jumping up on. I would recommend if you're playing with an idea, try to go. Yeah, if you do the yearly subscription, Jeffrey pointed out it's $8 a month. The yearly is $48 a month if you do for the pro subscription, which is what I did. Just because I was just like, I just gotta, this is something I'm going to want to do for the next year. But I would highly recommend getting at least the medium one so that you have a little bit. But you can spend a lot of time on relaxed, playing with ideas, and then you just do /relaxed, and then you can play with ideas. It takes a little longer, and then when you want to refine something, go back to fast, or you're trying to get Christmas cards out, then you just stay in fast and just burn up those hours. Next question.
TJ Asher from Minneapolis, Minnesota. What app does Alex use to share the Midjourney photos to his screen with the black background?
Oh, it's very high tech. It's called Keynote. So that was just Keynote. I just threw a whole bunch of them into Keynote, and they all snapped in. So that was all I did. Next question.
James Babbitt in San Diego, California. How does having Midjourney on Discord improve the creativity of Midjourney?
It's because you get 6.5 million people thinking together. It is so important. There is no way that the imagery in Midjourney would be anywhere near where it is now if it didn't exist inside of Discord. It's not just the largest community in Discord. It's probably the most technically forward-thinking Discord I've ever seen. Like, there is so much going on, and there is so in addition to that, I'm taking notes of things I like and don't like about mostly what I like. There's almost nothing I don't like about the Discord that Midjourney has. And by the way, their service, I had a problem with billing or whatever. I don't understand how that company, they solved my problem in 30 minutes. When I had a billing problem, and that was all the back and forth. I mean, they responded in 2 minutes. And so it's an incredibly responsive, community group. But it's the fact that you get to see, the big thing is there's so many people and you get to see the search terms. You see the image and you see the search terms and you go, oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, I'll do that next. And I'll add these things. And so now I have to admit I'm not a very good community member because I'm mostly doing it on my own, but I do watch everybody else's. Next question.
Lois Richter, Davis, California, asking, one of the style options is Pixar. What is that style? Did Alex have anything to do with creating that style?
No, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know. We'd have to play with it. It's interesting to see what the machine thinks of as a style, because it's not, basically it probably saw as every image ever put on the web that has a Pixar image, and it's created some idea, which will be interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell, real quick.
I would love to ask Jim Morris what he thinks of that.
Yeah, exactly. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, why do you think the Midjourney developers hosted the service on Discord instead of a web page or modular service that could be plugged into any platform?
I think it's because of they just see Discord as the future of communities interacting with each other, and they decided to be part of that, and leverage it. It does so much work for them that they don't have to do. That is, and even an Electron app, which is what Discord is better than the web. Next question.
Juan C. Robles in Mexico City, Mexico. Anyone knows if having Midjourney on a private server, the resulting images are private?
I don't. Well, right now the private servers are Stable Diffusion is what you would install if you want a truly private server. And that is something you can also train. You can give it a bunch of hundreds of images of something you're training it on. And then those are all stuff that you have that's not going anywhere. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, could you see copyright trademark claims by artists that think their work was used in Midjourney-created content?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Absolutely. There will be tremendous attempts at litigation on this, as there is with anything that grows very, very popular very quickly and has anything to do with the arts. More interesting than the claims and suits filed will be the outcomes of those claims and suits. So don't get too excited by the flashy headlines when those claims are filed.
I think it's going to be it's legally, the case is very difficult. They're going to try. But I think that this is a pretty steep hill. Go ahead, John.
I just put my Chat GPT attorney and let him sue the other party.
Exactly. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I think there's a whole new category of intellectual property that's going to pop up just because of AI and doing exactly what Midjourney does.
Yeah, I think that the question really is some people will say that that's NFTs. So NFTs are copyright without the copyright. You could literally build a Midjourney image and then wrap it with an NFT, and then that has its own value theoretically. I mean, that's so the blockchain is the next copyright if you're not going to want to interact with a government entity.
Then the other question is the intent aspect. The intent to defraud, that's going to be a tough one.
Jesse?
There's another side to this coin, and that is a sense of ownership over the images that somebody encourages Midjourney to create, and what that world of litigation is going to look like. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that the big thing again, I mentioned it at the very beginning. I keep on talking about it. What keeps on coming up for me is how much I'm having fun using the images for my own entertainment and for sending things out to people who are using my own things. I'm not sure that selling this stuff in a traditional manner is really the future. I think that the future may be people just entertaining themselves, their friends, their families, their cohorts with things, maybe all that's necessary. And the problem is now you're in a really conundrum because people aren't selling it. They're not trying to get copyright. They're not trying to do other things like that. They're just having a good time putting it together. And so I think that's the real, complexity of this conversation, is that it may not, a lot of it, especially when it's in a conundrum where we don't know what copyright you can do, you're going to see this huge explosion of people. Like that's what happened in TikTok. Everyone's sharing each other's stuff and it became a culture. And they weren't worried about copyright. They're just having fun, And so I think that's maybe the copyright doesn't matter, and that's going to be, and maybe it diffuses everything so much, literally, that copyright becomes less and less important. So it's a really interesting puzzle. Go ahead, Sky, real quick.
I heard a podcast that when sheet music was starting to soup the radio industry, when radio first became a thing, because nobody was sitting around playing their own piano anymore. They were just turning the dial and listening to somebody else do it for them.
Yeah, it's always the thing, but we're going to, this is stills. The video is already starting to become a thing. Within 2 years, you'll be sitting there generating video sequences of things that you're interested in these styles, in these processes. It's not going to be, it's not going to be still like we are looking at the 160 by 120 version of video right now, and we'll be at HD in 2 years and 4K in 5 years and 8K in 10 years. And so
and then Skynet at some point,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Next question.
Might be our last question here. Lois Richter in Davis, California, asking, can one buy into this company?
Go ahead, John.
So Google bought DeepMind, which is the AI platform that won Go and has the best chess engine on the planet. And then ChatGPT is invested by Microsoft, and so you've got the behemoths battling each other. There's going to be a new bubble. In AI, you're going to see a ton of new startups coming 2023.
And Midjourney is wholly owned by the guys that write it, I believe. I don't think there's any investment yet, or there may never be. They may have figured out, they just might be doing it as a private company. So it's really interesting to see that too. All right, there we go. It was a fun conversation. That was good. So we'll keep on having these. These are a big deal. We're going to be doing labs in after hours. So stay tuned. Look at the emails. We'll announce them there. And some of them may be informal. I may just show up with Midjourney and we'll start doing stuff. But a lot of them will be. And I would recommend when you can is to jump into after hours and just hang out. Just listen to it. So check that out. And but because a lot of times we're jumping in and out, you might want to just have the speaker on and listen to what's going on. And sometimes it's silent, but usually it's something kind of cool. But that's a great way to use after hours. All right, we're going to jump in. Thanks so much to our producers. Great questions, great conversation. Thanks to our panelists. Can't do this without you. Thanks to the incredible crew. We are going to be making a lot of changes over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and so great work there. And now we're going to jump into after hours. A quick reminder that we have a special guest in after hours right now. So when we jump out of here, I would highly recommend moving over there. So stay tuned for that. I can't say what it is, but be worth checking out. All right. Thanks so much. Let's jump into after hours.
Translation. That means it's always worth it.
I gotta go into after hours right now. Bye.
Always great to have a grant sighting. So, am I the only one who stayed till the end of the credits?